Hello again. Sorry about the technical glitch at the end of 3.1. We now resume with 3.2 and we go into the conjunct consonants. As we've seen, the single consonant, the consonant on its own, followed by a vowel, is very straightforward. There's a ka, written like that as a ka. That is a tu. That's a va. And with the vowel sign on top, it's a vai, and so on. A consonant not followed by a vowel. Let's write the word tat. The way I've written it there, sorry, I haven't shared my screen. Silly me. Let me do that bit again. Ka, that's the consonant followed by a vowel, ka. Tu. This is vai. That is tat. That would be tat. The way I've written it here, this bottom one, would actually be pronounced tata. But I want to make it tat with no following vowel, so I just put this virama, that sign beneath the T, is often joined to it as a part of the same thing, like that. And that makes it a tat, rather than this top one, which it would be without the virama, which would be tata. That makes it tata. That's tata out of tat. That's consonants with vowels, straightforward enough. Where you join two consonants, that's where it gets slightly more tricky. It can be a little bit daunting, but just remember the underlying golden rule is that, save in a very, very few cases that you'll learn easily, when consonants join into one complex symbol, with very, very few exceptions, they retain their individual distinctive shapes, so you can work out what they are. Almost every single one you can work out just by looking at it what it is, even if you've never seen it before. And in many cases you can write it correctly without ever having seen it before, just by knowing the basic rules. So let's look at the word kasya. I'm just going to write in Roman script first. Kasya. Now, I want to write ka, like that. I want to write sa, that's the sa letter. Yeah. What I've written here is actually kasaya. See, kasaya. Now, as I've said, you can delete the final vowel, as it were, by putting the virama. So here's the word. It looks, as I'm writing, it looks like tata, but to make it tat, I put the virama. Well, you might say, this letter I've written here, this word I've written here, kasaya, can't you just make it kasya by writing the virama like that? So if somebody saw that written, they would say, yes, that would be correct, could be correctly pronounced as kasya, but you never write it like that. When you get two consonants coming together without a vowel in between, you merge them into one symbol. So we have the characteristic shape of the s, like that. So the characteristic part of it is there. I say the characteristic part, the part without the upright and the crossbar. So if you want to write sya, you write the characteristic part of the first consonant, followed by the second consonant in full. Sya. And sta. S in full. Join together characteristic part followed by the sta in full. Namaste. Na ma s te. Namaste. As I've said, most of them are pretty straightforward. Some of them, they're mostly written, just one next to the other on the left, then following from left to right, as we've just done here. See, stu, stuti. That is stuti. Sometimes, because of their shape, they're written on top of one another. For example, if you write a double K, there's a single K, you can, as you know, like that or that. A double K, the characteristic part is stacked on top, you see? Two Ks together with this sharing the same upright and sharing the same crossbar. Mostly, again, it follows the usual rule, kcha. There's a k plus cha. Just joining one to the next, like in joined up writing, kcha. And a kya, we've seen how the sya is made. That's a sya. And this is a kya. You write the first part of the k, and then the ya. Now the k is a bit unusual in that it retains, even in combined form, it retains its vertical bar, unlike the S and the T you've just seen don't. And that's because its characteristic shape continues to the right of the vertical bar. So you see, like that. Then now this is, oops, I don't know what this is doing to me. Delete. Sorry. Characteristic shape. Still in the characteristic shape. Now joins into the and retains its down as well. Not written very elegantly. Let me show it to you elegantly in Lexilogos. Yeah. And I copy it, bring in my other sheet here. There, yeah. I'll enlarge it for you to make it clearer. There we are, kia. Sorry, there we are, kia. I'll show you now how the r is joined. If a consonant plus a r as a kr, tra, and so on, is a k. Now make that kr. The r is put in like a little bit stroke there. That's the p. Little stroke there. That's pr. Br. There's a b. Little stroke there. Br. Gr. The g. Stroke there. Gr. Look out carefully for it. It's very small and sometimes avoids detection if you aren't being careful. Like a D. There's a D there. D. It's written like that. So Rudra. Rudra. Now, certain ligatures, as they're called, conjunctions, have got to be looked at a bit carefully. You would expect, if this T is written like that, so if a P is that, and a P that is a Pra, you'd expect a Tra to be written like that. And sometimes it is. You will occasionally see it. But it's more common and generally regarded as more elegant, just to make it look like that. That's a Tra. So what's happened here is the T, but it has lost part of its characteristic shape. That's been shortened. See what's happened? Been shortened. If you lengthen it, it would be like that. Take it away again, it becomes like that. So remember that one. And the word mantra now. Now the full shape of a N is that. When it's joined, so it does the usual thing. When it joins a following consonant, you just write the characteristic shape. So that would be nta. So anta, because it begins the word. Anta. Now, let's look at the word mantra. We've got, this is anta. Now, mantra, got our normal ma to start with. Then we've got our n, characteristic part of the n, followed by the tr. So that is mantra. Let's see if it can give it to us more elegantly on the Lexilogos. Mantra. Now here you see they've actually written it with a full T, which is not regarded as the most classical way of doing it. Let me copy it into our, let's see what they give us here. There. As I said, the Lexilogos typeface isn't that classical or elegant. I've now transposed this into the Arial Unicode, the much more elegant and classical looking one. So the way you see it, mantra, written on this screen here, is the classical Devanagari way of writing it. Now, I mentioned a moment ago about some letters stacking one on top of each other, if they're the wrong kind of shape to join side by side. Let's just give you a couple more side by side, and then we'll go on to the ones that, as it were, stack vertically. Let's do a really simple one now. Oops. The Pali word pupa. It's from the Sanskrit pushpa, meaning a flower. We know that this is a pa. We know that this sign underneath is the short u. And we know that this is the aspirated pa sound, like the p, but with this tail to the right. So if we want to write pupa, this behaves exactly as you would expect. I'll write it for you. Pu. Now we're going to join the P to a PH. So the P will have just its initial characteristic form before the joining. So we now write P there. So the machine did something funny there. I think it's because I held the pen on it for too long. Thought it was a command. Pupa coming up again. Pupa. I've written it terribly badly. There we are, that's better. Pupa. And I'll do this for you on the Lexilogos. We come. Pupa. Do it onto our favourite typeface. And there we are. Now we'll come to the ones that stack. You will see these typically in shapes that don't have your standard signature shape with upright and crossbar. These are standard signature shape, upright and crossbar. Take a letter like the. Now, if you want to write dga, like an udga, that would be start off with your u. Now look at this. Like smaller, and the g written underneath it. So that is udga. So that shouldn't be good. Let me do that better. Udga. And I'll do it for you on Lexilogos. Udga. That's better. Udga. And I will give it to you on that big screen coming up. You'll see here that the G has two characteristic uprights. They're slanted to the right here. That's purely stylistic, purely calligraphic. In other typefaces, you will see the udga written vertically. In fact, if I go, for example, back into the other typeface we had, Mangal. You see they're cheating. Look at that. That is a serious cheat, and I'll explain in a moment why. But that's because this is a very crude typeface that I don't like, and I don't advise you to use. What's this one? There, you see, is another one. What's this called? Nirmala. Oh, I didn't use this one before. And here, this is much closer. Yes, it's halfway between the Mangal that I don't like and the Arial Unicode that I do like. Here you see the G is a bit more recognizable there. Say that this what was the upright is merged into the little tail of the D. So now you see these various ways of writing the same conjunct, a D and a G. And the answer is don't worry. There are stylistic ways of doing it. But what you can see in all the different ways of writing it, what you will see is the characteristic shape of the D. And that I'll put it up on my laptop again. Come on, I can get it to you. You always see that just the characteristic shape of the D plus the most characteristic, and so they'll both be there, either like that or like that, or one way or another, whatever style they're written in. You are going to find these characteristic shapes retained. Now let's look, for example, if you want to write ta. We know the ta, a bit of a curly one, and the t, that's the ta. The ta is we'll complete the curls. Now they can't join very easily to anything to the right, because unlike our, the t and the s, they don't have a convenient shape that's on its own with an upright and crossbar. That's why letters like that will stack one on top of the other. So ta in Devanagari would be written like that. But make it small. Oops! Come on! What are you doing to me? Ta. So you write the little t on top and the t underneath. Ta. If you want to write Buddha, the bu is written as you would expect. Bu. Now here we have the d plus dha, sometimes written like that. So the d with a the, you'll have the characteristic. It's just written underneath like that. So this is Buddha. Let me put it for you on the Lexilogos. Buddha. And now in large script. It's over for you. The Buddha. You'll see where my cursor's going here, that they've merged the little tail of the d with the downstroke of the d. Again, purely stylistic. This is the Nirmala script. Let me get back to my favorite. Favorite Arial Unicode. Again, just stylistic, but you'll still see, if you look, the characteristic of the unaspirated d and the characteristic shape of the aspirated dha. We'll look at it again now in my unfavorite typeface, the Mangal. Oh yeah, again, cheating. You're not really meant to do it like that. Let me go back to explain what I mean by cheating here. What I mean by cheating is that in good style, if it's possible to make a conjunct symbol of the consonants, then do it rather than avoid it. To do it in the way that it's done, as you see on the screen now, is just it's clumsy and it's not nice looking at all. So we'll go from that one to looking at the really nice one, which is our Arial Unicode. Here we are. That is the way it should be done. Even the Lexilogos did it like that. Now there are conjuncts that are really awkward to make. For example, d is a d followed by a m. There's no very obvious way of joining them. And you could just about you could do that, but I've never seen it done. It's not really done. So it's regarded, an awkward one like this, it's regarded as acceptable to write it in full with a virama there. So, for example, if there were, I don't know if this word exists, adma, you are allowed to write it like that. If, however, there's a known way of making a conjunct, then you should do it. For instance, if you wanted to write stuti, to write it like that is just plain wrong, because there's a perfectly easy and obvious way of combining the s with the t, which is like that. So it's allowed in awkward cases like the d and the m, just to write it with the virama, d, m, but certainly not in cases like the s and the t, where the way of joining is obvious. I'm terribly sorry, I haven't been sharing my screen with you, silly me. Let me get back to sharing my Apple screen, my, what's it called, iPad screen, and I will let you see it in a moment. Here we are. Sorry, it was start again. The letter D, as I was showing you here, the letter D, there's no obvious way of joining it to a M. I see, as I was showing you when you couldn't see, you could just about do it like that. It's kind of odd looking, never seen it. But because the D is an awkward one to join to another, it's regarded as acceptable not to make a conjunct consonant, but to write as a D with a virama and a M. So, if we want to make the, I think it's hypothetical word, adama, we're allowed to write it like this. Note, however, that because it's possible to do that, it doesn't mean that you're always allowed to. The general rule is only do it, only write the virama in the middle of a word or with an immediately following consonant if it's one of those cases where it's awkward to make the ligature. For example, if you want to write stuti, I mean, no way would you be allowed to write it like that. Stuti. The S, the S with the virama, I mean, this is just plain wrong. There's an easy and obvious way of joining the S to the T, and it's that, and that is how it should always be done. So I do emphasize, simply because there's an alternative way of doing it with the virama, as here, use that sparingly and only when you really have to. And again, the D, the D followed by a Y. You can't, some people might join the Y on like that, that's okay, but it's also acceptable to write it like that. With the vast majority of these things, it's fairly simple to make the conjuncts. It's just these slightly awkward letters. For instance, if you want to write partya, for example, partya, sorry, you could write it like that. Partya. That would be acceptable. Some people might write it like that, join it, and then make the year coming out like that. You don't have to. They're both right. There's a bit of flexibility with things like that. Now, before we wind up, there's just one bit that's left, and that is the writing of the r immediately before a consonant. Let's take the word karma, for example, and dharma. Now, we have the k. The next thing we write is the m. This is gamma. Now we want to write karma. The r immediately before the m appears as a hook. Oops, sorry, what's it doing? Come on. I've exaggerated it there. This hook above the consonant is the r. And normally, as you know, the r on its own looks like that, written badly there. Various ways of writing it. But you'd never write it like that if there's a consonant immediately following. So it's karma. Now say dharma. Dharma. Now, a peculiarity. The letter R, even though it might appear as the first element of a complex sound, like, say, kartsnya. Look at this. Kartsnya. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 5 consonants together here. R, T, S, N, and Y. Kartsnya. Means something like totality. And we're going to join these consonants together. The ka is no problem. That stands on its own with the vowel following. Ka. Okay. Now we're going to join together the r, the t, the s, the ny, and the y. Let's make it even. Oh no, I'll leave the additional complication for another form of the word. So kartsnya. We're going to write it like this. And note that I'm putting the r. The r appears as the first consonant of this group, but it's actually written last. So kar, t, another t, kar. Don't worry, r. We're getting round to you at the last. Kart, s. Now look, the t, I've only written the characteristic shape of it. The s, only the characteristic part of it, because it's been joined to another. The ny, n, that's the n, only the characteristic, and then the y. I've written that kartsnya, but the kartsnya, so I've written that stroke a little bit too long. The r goes up there. So, although we see it, kartsnya, it's the first consonant in that group, it's written as the last. And an additional quirk about the writing of the r, supposing we want to write this in the locative, kartsnye, where we have it finishes up, it's not with the yeah, but the yeah, it's yeah. The r even comes after the e sign. Look at this now. We're going to write kartsnye in Devanagari. Ka, then the t, s, n, y, e, and then the hook there. A lot of people write as one thing. I mean, write it in one. I haven't written that awfully well. I'm going to write that. Sorry. Sorry, come on. I'm trying to cancel the rubber. There we are. So the e and then the r. So rye. There. The r. So kartsnye. That r can right at the end. This bit here. So this winds up now. Actually, not quite winds up. There's one more thing I need to tell you about, and that's words joining together. So far, we've looked at individual words. In running script, words, just as you can get conjunct consonants together, words are regarded as one string. So let me give you an example. Let's take the simple phrase Nagaram agachati. He's coming to town. Nagaram, that's the accusative of motion. Agachati. It has the advantage of being identical Pali and Sanskrit. Nagaram agacchati. Now, let us write the word nagaram. Na, ga, ra. Let's write it on its own. Nagaram. Now this looks like nagarama, so we have to put the virama. That makes it nagaram. Agacchati. That's the a. The g. Sorry, be careful about that. I'll start that one again. A, g. Now the ch is that, and the ch is that. When you write them together, use the usual procedure, and you write it like that. So agacchati. Remember the short e, so it's written before the consonant. Nagaram agacchati. But in fact, it's not done like that, because in the Devanagari script, it would be treated as one group of sounds, nagaram agacchati, and in writing, the m and the a would be joined together. So you'd in fact write it like this. Nagara magacchati. Nagaram agacchati. As if it was all one word. So here you have the m and the a. Even though in fact they belong to entirely different words, they're written as if they belong to the same word. And unless you're really alert to that in the early stages, you're going to be constantly, goodness me, what is this word magacchati? And be looking at magacchati. Well, there is no magacchati. It is nagaram agacchati. This actually emphasizes the overarching importance of treating your Sanskrit and Pali learning as much as you possibly can as an oral exercise, rather than reading it, speaking it, and hearing it. As I mentioned earlier, the oral tradition is far more central to Indian culture than the written tradition, in sharp contrast, for example, to China, where it's the other way round. And so if you are not used to hearing and to reading, sorry, not used to hearing and speaking, but you're just looking at letters on the page, it'll be far easier to fall into that trap. Far greater risk of falling into that. Of Nagaraya got that magacchati, nagara magacchati. You'll avoid, or very largely avoid, these pitfalls if you're saying it to yourself out loud. Just saying it, nagaram agacchati. You see it written and say, what's the sound? Nagaram agacchati. Ah, yes, nagaram agacchati. I know that one. He's coming to town. So that this is another reason why, apart from being faithful to the cultural tradition, it actually makes Sanskrit and Pali learning much easier if you do try to treat it as an oral and a hearing exercise rather than a written one. Obviously, it's far more difficult living as we are now, because a lot of the time we're on our own studying from books. But as far as you can, try and make it that way. Now, in the reading exercises, the review exercises at pages 22 and 23 of the Yogavataranam, and I will call up again my exercises that I've done for you. Yeah, you don't need the book for this. You can use the sheet I've done for you. They have joined. Occasionally, they've kind of left the letters apart. And mostly, they've joined them here. What I'll do, I'll just go through a little bit of them with you. Let's look at the Yoga Sutras right in the middle of my page here. So, ahimsa pratisthayam tatsannidhau vairatyaga satyapratishtayam kriya palashrayatvam. Just a couple of points I'm going to discuss with you here. You say tatsannidhau, that I'm highlighting. This is a very obvious one. That's a t and a s. You see the characteristic. Let me enlarge it for you. You see the characteristic t and s there. Here, look at this. This, I'll enlarge it for you. This is the double N I. You see the two characteristic, written a little bit curly here. That's okay. That's just a matter of style. That's the two N's together. And the I, which follows, the sound follows, but as we know, the writing proceeds. So this is double N I, or ni. It's sannidhau. What size did we have? And vai, ra. Now look, oops, I made a space there I shouldn't. Oops, sorry, mucking this up. Vairatyaga. Look at the next conjunct. This is tyaga, leaving or abandoning. You see the characteristic, the t, followed by the y. Now here, from Bhagavad Gita, look at the word that I've highlighted, niruddham. Now we see the n followed in sound by the short I, but preceded in writing ni. We see the r, how rather than the hook down at the bottom, as you see where my cursor is here, where it's highlighted, that is du, duhkena, this is the du with the hook, the u hook down at the bottom, as usual, but here with the r, you see it's just tucked into the middle, not written completely, and here we've got the double dh, niruddham, niruddham. And the next word, much easier, yoga sevaya. Again here, sti. At one point I should mention is the sh. See where I've highlighted there? I will enlarge it for you. I'll go back to the iPad screen. Sorry, iPad screen. I'll get it for you. The sh written on its own. That's right, sh. But where you have a sh with a ch, you get the sh sound. That sh is written like that, with the ch underneath. So that is the sh sound. Incidentally, when you're writing a shra, as in shruti, you can write it like that, but you can also write the shra like that. And it's regarded, this way of writing I'm doing it now is regarded as slightly more elegant. So, shruti. So I appreciate I've been rambling on a bit. Actually, one bit more rambling about the joining of words. You know the om, tat, sat. Now, tat on its own, written like that. Sat on its own, written like that. This is satta. You make it sat with the virama. You aren't allowed to write it like that. You have got to join the t to the s. So it's actually written like that. Characteristic part of the t, followed now by your full sa. So this now reads that, that. Written as if it were one word, but of course we know that it's not. So there we are. There's quite a bit more to be learned, but in a few extra facts and how letters join. But here, hopefully, you have the essence of it. If you follow the shapes of the letters, follow the characteristic shapes of the letters, and you will almost always have it. And you can learn separately just a few oddities. For example, like the jinya, or nya as it's pronounced. It's a j plus nya. Actually makes a completely different shape. That's it. That's the nya. And the ksha. The k plus sh. Again, makes a completely different shape. There are two ways of writing it. One is like that, where the shapes of the original letters are completely lost. And the other way of writing it is like that. Ksha. The original shapes are completely lost. All this is ksha. And these are ones you just have to remember. But these are very rare. In fact, of the ones where the original shapes are completely lost, unrecognizably lost, the only common ones are this nya and this ksha, written like that, or. So I've written that in the crude handwritten way. In print, it would be written like that, ksha or ksha. That's it. These are the only ones where the shape is entirely lost. Good. That's it for now, and good luck, and just give yourselves plenty of practice. Goodbye.